Oops, somebody had an open mic and a cough.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, the evening edition. We do this once a week on Mondays. If you are in YouTube, you can find either in this video or in the videos previously. I'm not sure if we're updating this one immediately, but oh yeah, Jeffrey's here. So you'll see a link that you can get to Zoom, and then from Zoom you can get to Makana, and that's where you can ask questions. This is still an experiment. We're just experimenting and seeing how it all works. We're starting at 6. We're probably going to open the doors a little earlier for people to do tech checks next week. And then we'll do mic checks at 6:10. And so you need to be here by 6:10 to do the mic checks. And once we starting next week, once we start doing the mic checks, we won't bring anybody else in. So be here by 6:10. And then we'll start at the bottom of the hour at 6:30. 6:30, from 6:30 until 8, just open questions. Now, I said that it was just going to be open questions for a long period of time, but people are already going, hey, I know people that can come in the evening. So the second hour may end up being a second hour. It may turn into, may start having guests in the evenings. It's going to be, the whole thing is starting to take on a life of its own, as I think Grant expected. Anyway, if you've got questions, go ahead and put them into Makana. We've got a lot of questions, so I have a feeling that we're not going to be looking too hard, but I definitely put them in. And because we have a lot of questions starting to stack up, make sure to vote on those questions. Let us know which ones you want us to address. We tend to spend a little bit more time on the ones on the front than we do on the back. Also keep an eye on Makana. If the questions get low, it's a good time to ask questions. So the best thing to do between these shows, whether it's between the weekly shows or the daily shows in the morning, is to write those questions down in notes, write them down on a pad, write them somewhere, and then bring them in. You can also, by the way, put them in. You can jump into Makana anytime you want and actually use the notepad. If you little hamburger up there, your little preference settings, and there's a little notepad in there. You can just paste them in there if you want. Save them for a rainy day. Anyway, so it's hidden in there. Also, quick reminder that we're going to do another version of this on Wednesday in Clubhouse. We're going to give it a shot on Wednesday night. So 7 o'clock Wednesday evening. We're going to go ahead and try out Clubhouse and see how it works. I have no idea what it will happen, but we're going to give it a shot. All right, let's jump into the questions, Bill.
Okie doke. First one comes from Tom Wineland of San Francisco. How is Office Hours going to use the Clubhouse app, or are you just testing it out to see how it could work with Office Hours, apropos of what Alex was talking about?
The first use of it is just going to be trying to use it in its native state. So we're not going to try to do anything weird. We're just going to open up Office Hours. Hopefully some of the panelists will raise their hands. It'll probably be people that, for panelists on the first one, it'll definitely be people I know. So we'll bring them in. And so raise your hand if you're a normal panelist here. If you're not a normal panelist, I probably will be hesitant to start. So we'll bring folks in, and I just needed to see how the platform works. I am thinking about doing Clubhouse where we pipe Office Hours into Clubhouse that people can just listen to, might even think of a two-way communication where we could have a couple people in Office Hour there and here, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it won't work. I mean, I know that it sounds odd, but I actually think that because of the way our conversation works, I've been kind of listening to a lot of Clubhouses, and I'm not sure as a person listening whether it makes any difference, whether it's being piped in or whether there's people there. Go ahead, Jeffrey, and then Dan.
To clarify, you want us to come to Zoom, or you want us to come to Clubhouse and friend you? How do you want to do that? Panel's going to be here?
No, the panel for Wednesday is going to be in Clubhouse. You see to be in Clubhouse. It's already been scheduled. So if you're following me, you should see it as one of your options of a show to go in. Wednesday at 7 o'clock, we're going to just give it a shot. There's not going to be any Zoom. We're just trying. I first want to try to use the platform for a week or two just as the platform was designed, so I can get a sense of what that looks like. Then I'll decide whether we continue to do it just in Clubhouse as a native solution, or whether we pipe. The question really is do we do a Clubhouse once a week on Wednesdays, or do we do it once a week on Wednesdays natively and we do it every day by just piping this into it every morning? That's the thing I'm trying to kind of figure out. Go ahead, Dan.
Since it's iPhone only, are you going to do a different mic? Are you recommending that we come in with a better mic than the iPhone?
As best you can. I'm going to do a USB connection to I'm going to do a Lightning to a USB pre. so my mic will be different.
So, okay,
that's fine. It's Clubhouse. So we're not. I don't think people are used to that, and so we're just experimenting right now. Again, don't be too stressed. Going in with whatever mic you have, just holding up your iPhone will be just fine for the first one. Just don't put it on speakerphone. Go ahead, Chris.
Is it safe to assume that on Clubhouse there'll be no screen sharing?
Yeah, there'll be no screen sharing at all.
If you manage to screen share, please let us know.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, there's no chat. So I kind of find it to be very primitive, but we'll see. Go ahead, Courtney.
For those that have on the panel and in the attendees that don't know what Clubhouse is, you want to give a brief description of basically what it is and who's there and how it works.
Yeah, Clubhouse is the new social media star at the moment. It's basically what we do here at Office Hours, except that it's all audio and people are using their phones. And people can, they can follow the event. They can raise their hand and be brought up to stage, much like we do with panelists, and then talk about a given subject. I have a tendency to think that I'm going to be pretty frustrated with it, but I'm hoping I'm going to try to figure it out. Just because I think that because I can't see who's going to talk next. I can't see who. So there may be a point where we manage it, where we just tell everyone in Clubhouse to use Makana to ask questions and, use the new system that we're working on to manage questions so that then it'll sound great on Clubhouse. People are like, how do they do that? And so anyway, we're going to kind of play with that. That might be the solution, is to have kind of a sidebar of information that we're all using. So we're trying to figure it out. It's mostly just a collaborative audio platform that you can turn on and listen to. And it's growing really fast. And one thing you learn when you've done this for a while is that when something's growing really fast, it's the time probably to get in. And just, even if you don't take it anywhere, it's probably the time. You don't want to wait for it to be mature. Once it's not moving very fast at that point. So you kind of jump in on the front edge. So we're going to try it, see if it's useful. Go ahead, Courtney.
Since it's iOS only, is there room in the interface to fit a Makana mobile and the Clubhouse interface and how does raising your hand work if there's no video, and how do you know?
So there's another version of Makana coming for the panelists that'll have the ability to digitally raise your hand inside the system. And then we would encourage people to listen to it and then possibly use their computer or something else if they want to ask questions. We'll let people ask them, but right now there's no good way to for people to ask questions now, like on Clubhouse, other than raising their hand, which is just, and then being brought up to stage and randomly talking, which to me is, chaos. Roscoe, and then I think it answers my question about why so many conversations on Clubhouse are so bad. Anyway, Roscoe.
First of all, they have a newbie tag. So all you who will be joining on Wednesday, if you haven't been there before, you'll have this little thing on you that says newbie. And it's kind of a half dumpster fire in my mind right now, because there's some please, for any parents out there, don't let your kids near it. Seriously, don't.
It's pretty rough. Go ahead, Jan. But again, I look at it as an opportunity of, hey, if we have a great conversation on Clubhouse, we could end up with a lot of people thinking that, well, this is a really good conversation. So I see the opportunity as us building something that's well designed, that uses maybe extends the platform a little bit more than everybody else's. And I've been listening to it a lot, just trying to figure it out. And again, it's kind of like, I don't quite understand why people would listen to these people talk. I think that's the thing that I'm having a hard time with. Go ahead, Jan.
What I read is that if you want to talk, you flash the mic a couple of times. There's a mic button. You flash the mic a couple of times, and that way people will know that you want to talk. That's what I saw that. Also, I might recommend, Alex, that if you want to do a beta version, pick a few people out. I'll volunteer with you to just try it out, just so that we can get some of the bugs out.
Yeah, we might try that. We might try that tomorrow. Yeah, stay tuned for that. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'm on Clubhouse right now. I opened a room, and I don't see anybody else here. I don't see anyone else here on Clubhouse right now, except Jeffrey Powers. And
they're all on Zoom.
He's not answering.
We're all on Zoom. We're not on Clubhouse. We're on Zoom. All right. Go ahead, Roscoe. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say it kind of works like being promoted to a panelist. In Clubhouse, you just sit there and listen, and then you raise your hand, and then you get invited to the stage. Once you're on your stage,
It's the same thing that we're doing
you have
here.
microphone control once you're on stage.
Yeah. So anyway, so we'll see how it goes. Wednesday will be interesting. All right, next question.
Well, next question comes from Art by Jr., and he is about Clubhouse. Which Clubhouse app does one need to download from the App Store? There seem to be 3 of them.
Go ahead, TJ, and then Joseph.
It is this one here that has a picture of a dude with a guitar. It's a smiling guy with a guitar. It says Clubhouse drop-in audio chat.
There you go. Joseph, is that?
Nope, I was going to say the same thing. All good.
Yep. Next question.
Moving on to Mark Harder of Brooklyn, New York. And Mark says, Tucker, what are you using to put the waves meter on your screen with you? vMix, OBS, or what?
That is Mix. So way back in the day, whenever we're in office hours, near the beginning, whenever Alex said that he wanted to have meters, that's the way. And yeah, that's it. It's just an overlay cut from a second screen coming in. Yeah.
There you go.
Nice max headroom.
Yeah, you're a little broken up. It sounds Wi-Fi-y a little.
You got a little Wi-Fi. You sound Wi-Fi-y.
There's definitely no Wi-Fi, but I'll take a look. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Next question.
Tabak Miguel Lopez Waterman, our friend from New York, says, are there some USB-C to USB-C cables that will not work with the Atem Mini Pro when using it as a webcam?
Yes, there are. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, there definitely are, because I purchased one. I was very disappointed that they don't include one. Not that I'm bitter. I can't tell you the brand. It was an off-brand. But someone recommended the Apple cables, and they work very well. You get the 6-foot one. It works great.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
You know what really works well? That 16-foot Oculus fiber cable. It works perfect for that.
So, yeah, go ahead, Roscoe.
Blue Condor from B&H will work.
Yeah. Grant?
Yeah, you just got to watch the really cheap cables are often just power. They're power only, and they're just for charging. And so you need a proper data cable.
Yeah, and some of the ones that I've been pretty happy with are across the board. I've been kind of slowly collecting lots of the ones made by Uni, UNI, for I keep on buying them. They keep on showing up, and I keep on buying them. I'm continually happy with them. So, by the way, the way that I test cables, and I do it with every USB-C, because USB-C is kind of a dumpster fire in my eyes because of this, that you just don't know what you're getting with every cable. Like, it's just this random, so if I buy a new set of cables when I don't know what I'm going to get, typically what I do is I plug them into a hard drive that I have a known speed. So like a T5, I'm going to expect about 900 megs a second. I plug them in, I do a speed test, like with a disk utility, not disk utility, with the Blackmagic speed test. And I just run it. And if it gives me a hard drive speed that I expect, then it's probably fine. If it's not, it'll be like 35 megs a second. Like, it's not like, oh, it's 200 and maybe that's right. It's 35 or 900. So like the power cables only are like 35, and the data cables will be as fast as they need to be in general. Go ahead, Chris, and then Paul.
One of the things that, from my understanding, is that the big problem with that connector is it can be a power cable, it can be a data cable, it can be a Thunderbolt 3 cable, it can be a USB-C cable. However, the new Thunderbolt 4 cables, my understanding is they will work for everything.
Sure, they will.
So if you're not heavily invested in Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C yet, just buy Thunderbolt 4 cables. You'll never have the problems that we're talking about right now.
Good, Paul.
Alex, I'm trying to connect the dots. You said you used a hard drive to test your cable.
I have lots of hard drives laying around.
Go into more
specifically,
detail
I have
how that works.
I just know how fast the speed should be on a cable on a USB. I have lots of little hard drives laying around that are USB-C. So, and I know how fast they should be. So I have lots of Samsung T5s or other things like that. And I just plug it into one of the ones that I have that's a known speed for me, and I test it. These Unis have worked for me, and they're a little bit more expensive, but they work. And I have I use them for the HDMI to USB-C as well. They worked well. Got a lot of them. And so anyway, so those are strong cables to use. Next question.
Comes to us from Andy Carluccio of Washington, D.C., who many of us here know as the father of Zoom OSC, and who is doing training with us on Saturdays, an amazing set of training things. He says, what app would folks want remote control of based on when an event happens in Zoom? I need a subject for my tutorial tonight, going to show how to convert OSC into a hotkey press.
What app do you want to remote control that is based on when an event happens? So if something happens in Zoom and you want the app to do something, go ahead,
So this
TJ.
is your chance to affect Zoom OSC with your hand raises today.
I could think you would maybe want Keynote if you're trying to do a screen share type of thing where you want to try to control Keynote.
I would like a animation that is played by QLab and keyed over by an Atem switcher when someone raises their hand as a attendee. So like a little hand pops, like float up. Like so the action is someone raises their hand, because what you could do then is you could have, the whole applause that we do here. No, you could have it like a whole bunch of them. It'd be like the hearts that you'd have in Facebook. I'm telling you to do something that I actually hate about Facebook, but we'll anyways. It just we would train everybody to use it very carefully. But so what happens is if people raise their hand, if they want to applaud, after someone gives a great answer or whatever, they'd all raise their hand. And when they raise their hand, it would take animations in QLab and play them through. Or you could do it through vMix if you wanted, but I'm just saying have QLab play it, and then you can key it wherever you want. Go ahead, Courtney, and then Flock.
Play, stop, and next file on VLC player.
What's the action in Zoom that drives it?
Well, there wouldn't be an action in Zoom that drives it.
That's the question. So something happens in Zoom, something else happens in another app. That's what we want it to do. That was mine. It's taking an action from Zoom and doing something. Flock?
I'm not sure if this is in this wheelhouse yet or not, but I thought it would be great if there were hand raises that you could combine those hand raises in an app and get a hotkey for changing them from attendees and changing them to panelists.
Cool. Roscoe?
All open sound control, so just give me some sounds to control.
Go ahead, Chris.
I thought the question said when a Zoom event is scheduled. Maybe I'd heard it wrong.
No, when an event happens in Zoom, remote control based. And I took event as programmer's version of event, which is something occurs in Zoom that creates
okay. I was thinking my 9 o'clock meeting tomorrow or something. Okay,
yeah. Next question.
Oh, okay. I'm going to move on. I was saying every time I mute my mic, it should applaud for me. Michael Rogers of Syracuse says, "What was the rationale or reason for dropping our audio level from the original negative 20 dB to the new standard of negative 24?"
Go ahead, TJ.
2 reasons. 1, Mickey didn't want to play in the loudness wars, and 2, people that were on things like the Tech Rise with the more inexpensive microphones were having a hard time hitting the negative 20 LUFS.
And
I just wondered if it had something to do with internal compression in Zoom or something.
Nothing that high end. My reasoning for it was mostly that Mickey said he wanted to do it that way, and I said okay. Like that was I had him send me a paragraph about why, but Mickey said this is what I think we should do, and I've learned to delegate to Mickey in those areas. Go ahead, Grant.
I've also noticed recently that when you're sort of just doing a default, I think I was using the phone with AirPods, that it was sitting right around -24. So completely automatic, it was -24. So it seems like a good standard to go with.
It turns out to be the broadcast standard too, so it makes it easy. There's a lot of things built for it. Next question.
Alton Christensen of Brooklyn says, any thoughts on what Frame.io might be announcing this week? And they have been doing a countdown on their main website, so something big maybe.
Silence. I'm sure we'll get to talk about it on Friday, but I bet it'll be great.
I will say that they've been one of the fastest and most carefully developed pieces of software or platforms, it's really a platform, that I've seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm. They're doing great. So I'm sure that, that they tend to be putting in a lot of things that make a difference. Jake Hamilton, by the way, has really found the one weak point where we think that there's an opportunity for them, which is this dead drop idea where it's just really hard to find something that is capable of taking large files and letting you upload them. You want to give a client or contributors the ability to write without read. And Dropbox does this, and Box does this, and a lot of other ones, but they max out at 35 or 50 gigs. Whereas, you need to be able to have unlimited size, let's say, but not be able to read the file and not have to give you special status, just give you a link to upload. Tucker?
If they do that, it is going to be incredible, because the rest of, like you said, the rest of the workflow that they have it's unmatched by anything else. I think Chris has a custom thing that he did to kind of do the same thing long ago. But yeah, that would be, if they did anonymous drop, it would change a lot.
It doesn't have to be anonymous drop. It just has to be non-readable drop. Like or dead drop, where you just can't see what you're going into. Next question.
Moving on to Philip Tesoro of Brisbane, Australia. What is Clubhouse supposed to do that nothing else out there is already doing?
Go ahead, Grant.
I think when we think about audio live streaming, there really isn't platforms for it. And so that as a start is how do you listen to live audio? It's like whenever we talk about, how do we broadcast live audio? And we're like, we use a shoutcast things. It's so old. All of that is really old. There's no YouTube live for audio. And so I think they're tapping into that. That's one thing. And then it's also a platform for producing the content for that live audio too. And so I don't think it's necessarily the perfect way, or that they have landed on the best way of doing it, but they have got audio working well, and you can just listen to it and you can easily find the different things. But I think it's open to another like disruption potentially of another company that could come and do it better, unless they keep iterating and then they could stay on top, because they got a lot of celebrities that are hitting it up.
Joseph?
I think their timing couldn't be better. People have been starving for social connection because so many of us are on lockdown, and it's a pretty easy, low friction way to connect with people. Right? It's just on your phone, which means most people aren't trying to find a good mic to use with it. You just throw in your AirPods or whatever Bluetooth headphones you're wearing. You turn it on. And it just works. I mean, to kind of your point earlier, it's not perfect. It doesn't have the same moderation tools that Zoom has, but maybe that's why people like it so much, because they can just kind of get on there. It's very, again, low friction, and it works. It kind of reminds me of what Instagram looked like in the very early days, where people weren't posting, full frame DSLR images. They would just pick up their phone, take a photo, apply a filter to it, and then post it. It's kind of the same idea, right? I think it's very... there's not a lot there, which I think is one of the reasons why it's successful. I'm sure they'll add more as they become more and more successful.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, just a lot of people have Zoom fatigue, and or they have a barrier to using video to get on Zoom, and it's so easy just to jump in. There's no pressure, and it's just audio.
Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, you got to look at it as like Zoom or Facebook for ugly people, because you can't really see anybody's face. So it works that way. By the way, just an FYI, I'm throwing a link into Mukana right now in the chat. I found this phenomenal video that really goes into great detail on how Clubhouse works and how a newbie can get in and understand it all. So it's in Mukana right now.
Cool. Thank you.
Wait a second, Jan. That just came in as a string of numbers with no URL.
Yeah, you just pasted your phone number in there, I think, Jan.
That
Everyone
worked.
call it.
All right, it wasn't mine, somebody else's. Don't call that number. Otherwise, Ben will get really pissed.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. It's with all of these, they're kind of hit and miss. You never know what will take off and what will. Meerkat came out and everyone was excited about live, and then Periscope, without even getting to a point where they were released were bought for $400 million by Twitter because they were afraid of missing out, and never really kind of fizzled out. And then Meerkat went into something else. And so it was interesting is how long people have been talking about audio. Shoutcast has been around for a long time. Hangouts was actually created by the team that was called Hey Now, which is pretty much exactly the way it does exactly what Clubhouse is doing. So Hey Now was a way for bands to talk to their fans. And I mean, it was very, on the phone. It was literally Clubhouse. I mean, I'm going to try to get one of the guys from Hey Now that went to Google. I don't know if he can talk or not, but anyway, but if he can, we'll get him on and talk about it. But then those guys created Hangouts. Facebook actually had an audio streaming that they teased at, I think, one of the F8s or whatever, and then it just never went anywhere. Like it was supposed to be released, and then it just didn't get released. And so it's just really fascinating that people have circled this for a while. And then we have Mark Cuban, who's now going to do Fireside dot something or other, which is going to be basically looks like it's going to go kind of head to head with Clubhouse, but it's going to allow you to podcast, but interact and monetize. So that's what they say later this year. But I think that it's going to be something similar. So the competition will pick up. The good news is if you're into audio, it's coming. Audio is coming, like winter is coming, and it's going to be another thing that people can listen to. Go ahead, Bill, and then Courtney.
Well, I think it's a little bit like, remember, television was one directional. The network sent it to us. Then suddenly YouTube made you realize that you could do minor pieces of TV. This is exactly the same thing for radio. Radio itself has been in decline for a long time, and now you got bidirectional radio, which is basically, I think, what Clubhouse is. And it satisfies a need in people. I mean, if I was sitting on the couch and had nothing else to do, to pop on and talk to people and engage in that more global discussion would be attractive.
Yeah. Courtney?
Yeah, then Paul Wallace will know what I'm talking about. If ham radio operators out there know this, a net used to be, maybe still is, I haven't been on my ham radio in a long time, something that several hams would get together at a certain time at night and all kind of contribute and talk via audio. And I think the recent popularity of Clubhouse comes from its exclusivity right now, because it's limited to iOS and it's invitation only, and that tends to generate a lot of buzz. And that, with Elon Musk being on it, kind of put it in the stratosphere.
So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. And one thing that I've learned to do is to kind of jump into things and ride the wave as long as it goes, and try to. It ends up kind of amplifying a bunch of other things that you're doing if you do it well. So it's not a bad idea. Next question.
A. Mitchell's from Washington has a very thoughtful and kind of long question here, but it's interesting. Talak, he specifically calls out for answers to this. Talak Lopez-Waterman and Jeff Keithley, both in the panel. Since the work environment in the U.S. has continued to evolve for this industry, how are your recent experiences traveling for work as well as working in different areas of the country? What's working well? What should people be aware of or prepare for before they travel? And he notes this can include how worker requirements have changed, how things change as you move from place to place, how driving has been for work across long distances, and how you've had to change or adapt your process. Very open question.
The limits. The funny thing about, just so you know, that the limits for your questions and the notes is really just based on A. Mitchell's. Like he always pushes it right to the outer. He always does that, and if it's too long, I literally go back to Chris and go, "Yeah, let's just shorten that just a little bit," because A. Mitchell's will just use the whole thing. But it's a good. A. Mitchell's, you give us great questions. It's just that it's always very verbose, and he defines the outer edge of the question. Go ahead, guys. Well, go ahead, Flock.
So it's a very interesting question. I think that on one hand, it has to. I want to bring up that planning by the organization that you work for is super, super important. Putting together a plan about how to deal with how people get together, and are they going to get tested, and all of those things. And for me personally, working in theater, I was in Florida where people feel a little much more lax about COVID. And so what I did is I would work on the project, and then I would never, even though everybody wanted me to come to opening night, I would not go because I just it frightened me. So I kept my the numbers of people around me at the most minimum that I could, and I got myself tested almost weekly, and I was very, 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 or I am still very, very regimented about wearing masks, even walking out in the open. And it's just my livelihood depends on it. And then on top of that, in places like Florida, people are not wanting to wear masks. And there's a particular kind of person when you go into the Lowe's or you go into the grocery store who will not wear a mask. And so I frankly, I walk the other way. And I just, it's on my mind all the time. And I try to be as careful as I possibly can be.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I started traveling. I guess it was last November. Sorry for my throat. I've been talking all day. The first event I did was for Ford in November, and that was a big travel. I was gone for like 2 weeks. Spent most of the time in the hospital. Most of my time in the hotel, which ended up being probably one of the worst things. As much as I don't like to stay in hotels, it got worse because there was just so much downtime that I had to spend in the hotel, and because we were not quarantined to the hotel, but we were strongly suggested don't leave the hotel. And it was great for the first couple, maybe I guess about a week, and then the hotel restaurant closed, and then became the real challenge. And this was Michigan, so it was really hard to get food. It was hard to eat after hours. If we were getting out of our normal day, it was 6:30, 7 o'clock. It was really hard to get fed by 9 o'clock because 9 o'clock it all shut down. And we recently came back from 1st of January down in Florida, completely different. It was like wide open. We were in Delray Beach. There was very little. I mean, there was less seating in the restaurants, and they did close down earlier just because they didn't have the numbers, but it was a lot looser. And that's what I've seen. I'm from Texas. We're a little bit looser in this area than what I saw in other areas, but every area is a little bit different. And I just think we have to do our due diligence to do like he was saying, is make sure if you are the sole provider for, like I kind of am for my family, in many ways, if I go down, what's it going to happen to my business and also my family? So I just say, just be careful out there. That's all you can do. I wasn't a fan of flying, though I flew a couple times, but I've driven all over, and it's even worse when you're driving because you go in a gas station, it's just like, whatever. Some people wear masks, some people don't, but it's like, whatever.
Block.
Yeah, and my wife has done a lot of work with planning for smaller companies that I work for, and she works for, was for looking at how the CDC is recommending things, thinking about how, what kind of masks are good, and putting that all in some kind of document that is followed, and I think it's important because the minute there's another thing is that your talent, the minute they feel uncomfortable, you've lost them. And at that point, what are we even doing? So that we have to make sure that people feel comfortable, and also make sure that we're aware that at any point somebody might get spooked. And so you have to have kind of a backup plan for that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of traveling myself, and a lot of it has been the same thing. Go into a store on the highway because you drove to be safer. You realize that the stores are probably way more problematic than the airport, where there's someone walking around wiping everything off as you leave. So it was kind of an interesting observation. And I get concerned mostly that if I test positive, it just, to Jeff's perspective, it screws up a lot of production. I'm not personally too concerned, just given my history with infectious diseases. I'm not personally worried that it would do anything to me, but I am concerned about everyone around me. And I am concerned that it'll affect business if I test positive. So I pay a lot of attention so regardless of whether I think it'll do anything to me or not, I'm just worried about the positive test and other people's reaction. Their reaction to COVID could be very much different than what I project as mine based on every other infectious disease that I've run up against. And so so I pay a lot of attention to it, and I don't really go out much when I go to hotels. I was working in LA, and as a kid who grew up on, for a variety of odd reasons, grew up on sea rations. I'm very capable of going to a store and buying a whole bunch of, or even just packing a whole bunch of cans of like beef stew. I just come home and just eat it straight out of the can. I have no problem. Like, it doesn't even faze me. Like, that's just dinner. It's pistachios, beef stew, and usually something to drink while I'm watching TV, while I'm watching my iPad, and then I go to sleep. So that's pretty much my dinner when I'm traveling right now. Anyway, next question.
Moving on, James Fosseline of Bloomington. Wondering how y'all feel about learning Resolve. I'm a Final Cut user. Wondering if going back and forth between the two will be an issue.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, you got to learn tracks again, which is what confuses me. I mean, I spent, I guess, 9-10 years straight on Final Cut Original that had tracks, migrated to Final Cut 10 when it first came out, have been deliriously happy with that ever since because I'm much faster. And now for me, even though I had that 10 years with tracks, I go back to tracks and I feel constrained. So mentally, I just have to go back to that prior muscle memory. I can cut in it okay, but it just feels laggy to me. I do understand that Resolve has capabilities because it is the newest code base out there that Final Cut doesn't have, particularly in the color area and some other things, because they're super strong in that with Resolve. But it, as an editor, it does tend to slow me up when I have to work with tracks again.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
I actually find it to be freeing because I find tracks to be organizing. So different people have different opinions on how things work, which is fine. I did put a link in from Ripple Training on using Resolve just as a color corrector. And so Steve wrote a nice thing about here's how you move from Final Cut Pro into Resolve and then back to Final Cut Pro.
Go ahead, Chris.
I've been a pretty vocal proponent of Final Cut in the community for a long time. And I will say, without a doubt, Resolve will be my next editor when Final Cut is canceled by Apple.
It took a little while for him to figure out how he was going to deliver that to us.
Not a day before. Final Cut is far superior from an organizational standpoint, period.
Chris, remember Final Cut Pro 7?
I know. I was there. Did it all. We call that Final Cut Classic, Roscoe.
Yeah. I'm using both, and I'm spending probably half my time in both. The fundamental thing right now is that I don't feel like the Final Cut tools, as they relate to surround and as they relate to HDR, a variety of different HDR, are sufficient to do what I'm doing. And so I can't use Final Cut, and I've been using Final Cut since version point something before 1.0. But I had it before they were releasing it. And so the thing is that, yeah, so I still find Final Cut to be a lot faster than, to get stuff done. But when I need to dig in, the problem is what makes it fast is it takes away a lot of control, and I need the dials that are in Resolve. And the dials are amazing, especially in the new 17, in the 17 Pro version or Studio version, there's some crazy tools in there. And so anyway, so we're going to do training in Resolve. It is not a replacement for Final Cut. It is a replacement for Avid and Premiere. Sorry, I just had to say that. I don't understand. Like, I think if you still use them and you're in inertia, you should go ahead and you keep using them, but I would never start there again. If you don't like Final Cut, just use Resolve. I wouldn't go to Premiere or Avid at this point. I think it's kind of a waste of effort. Go ahead, Chris, and then Mike.
If you're lucky or you can manage it, find a buddy. Find somebody who's a month or a couple of years ahead of you. I had the opportunity to work with somebody who knew Resolve very, very well. He actually wrote the book about Resolve, and it was great.
He wrote the book, literally.
It was great to be able to contact him and say, "Hey, what did you say about? Oh yeah, sorry, okay, bye." Click. Stepping away.
Good, Mike.
So, as someone who worked in Hollywood for many years as an editor, using all of those platforms, I have to say, it really, really astounds me how many people would actually load Premiere on an iMac. And I used to tell them for years, I said, you realize this is really not an efficient way to go. Like if you're going to run Premiere, do it on Windows. Do not use it on iMac.
Yeah. With Resolve specifically, though, is I think that the opportunity for us as a group to learn it is because, again, I think that there is a massive opportunity coming related to HDR and surround because of the Apple AirPod Pros and because of the new phones. People's eyes are being resensitized to dynamic range and surround because of the things that everybody's buying. It's suddenly become, there's the chicken or the egg, of somebody had to make surround and HDR a consumer solution, and Apple has done that over the last 12 months. And as a result, what we're going to see in 12 to 24 months is a huge demand for everything's going to need to be HDR and surround. Like people are going to start expecting it within the next 36 months, definitely on the outer edge, where they want to see those kinds of things getting built out. And so I think there's an opportunity for us as a group to be on the front edge of being able to deliver that content, effectively. And the opportunity for us to learn is that we're going to get to learn it from Ripple Training. Now there's going to be a sale on their kind of general 17 training. And then we're going to get to spend an hour a week with the guys at Ripple, and we get to all be in Discord talking about it and going through the stuff together. We have the opportunity for a couple hundred of us to learn how to do this out of the couple thousand that are our group. Now we have that persistent knowledge base inside of the group, and as a result, we'll all learn faster. The same way we're doing with Zoom OSC is that peer-to-peer learning starts to accelerate, because there's so many of us thinking about it at one time. And so that's why I'm excited about it coming the end of the month. Anyway, next question.
Mike Burns from here in the panel in Spokane, Washington. What is the difference between Sound Source and Loopback? They are both Rogue Amoeba software.
Yeah, go ahead, DJ.
You can think of Sound Source as a better control for each individual app. You can route the output for one app to your headphones, one out to your speakers if you want. Gives you a little bit of EQ ability. You can think of Loopback as sort of a patch panel for all the audio within your computer. You can route 2 or 3 audio sources, Zoom or QuickTime or whatever, all into one output that you can then push out into something else.
Go ahead, Jan. Nope, that's it. Next question.
Comes from Tony Mobley, a regular on the normal panel in Newman, Georgia. Is there any way for those of us who don't have access to Clubhouse to be able to listen in? So,
probably not on the first one. Again, I'm torn with this idea of just because I don't know how we're going to pull it. Probably not on the first one. The first couple are going to be me just experimenting. I don't need to, don't worry about it too much. There will be a record available, and we'll figure out how to even maybe pipe it back into Makana. So you can just listen to Clubhouse in Makana. That would be the best. Because all I have to have is another phone that links into Makana. If we just had another phone that linked into Makana, then we could, or into Shoutcast or whatever, it could just stream it back out into Makana. Something about it's too fun not to do. So
just scrape the audio and pipe
it over. I don't think I'm going to have it ready for Wednesday, but I'll get it ready by the next week. We'll have it so that you can just, that's the way to do that, is to, anyway, go ahead, Joseph, and then Jan.
Sorry, I hate to be that guy, but their Clubhouse's terms are pretty adamant about not recording or rebroadcasting. I don't know how.
I'm sure that they'll. I'm sure they'll find me on my own app, like hidden away in a thing.
Well, again, I don't know if and how they enforce it, but it's worth noting.
We'll see.
Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, Jen.
If anybody had a Rode podcast, the Rodecaster or my L track, you could just play it right out, and then we could beam it into a room somewhere that's just private, like one of our Zoom rooms or something like that. If we had to do it.
I will admit that I'm still mostly triangulating how to pipe this into Clubhouse, as opposed to, it just seems like a simpler way for us to do it, is just to make it available in Clubhouse and people can listen to it there. Because most of the listeners are passive anyway, but I don't want to do it the very first time. I want to just see what it's like, and I could be wrong. Go ahead, Chris.
It seems like the restrictions about streaming something else is wouldn't it mostly be worried about copywritten material? Or is it literally like...
Most people want you to stay on the platform. I mean, there used to be a lot of rules within Facebook and YouTube about that too. If you were streaming to Facebook, it was technically a violation of terms of service to also stream to another platform at the same time. So there's a lot of those that they finally backed away on because it's very hard to enforce. And what happened is that as soon as influencers start doing it, they don't want to pick a fight. That's usually what happens. Next question.
Tim Holm of San Lorenzo says, I'm purchasing an Atem Mini Pro. I don't really need the ISO recording at this time, but it's something compelling about choosing the Pro. Is there something compelling about choosing the Pro ISO over the middle tier ATM Mini? So the Pro ISO versus the Pro.
Go ahead, Tony.
I actually have the Pro, and I'm going to take the office hours theme by once. Cry once. Because since I have it, I think it's a fantastic device. I'm enjoying it, but I wish I had the ability to do the ISO recordings. And I think in the future, you don't know what's coming, but I guarantee you that if you have the ISO, you will find a reason to use all of the features. So buy once.
Go ahead, Talak.
I also have the Pro, and I have been thinking a lot about this whole idea of bringing it right into Resolve with an XML file. And I just think that, I mean, I got some footage from Laura to look at. I haven't had a chance to do it, but once I do that, I think I'm really gonna cry that I didn't get the
Laura.
Yeah, the ISO is pretty cool. And I would say the Resolve project is probably the coolest. I do think that's the only difference between those two models. So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I bet you use it and you like it.
Love it. You'll find reasons to use it. The ISO, yeah. I guarantee. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Chris, and then Grant.
I think to the person who is asking the question whether or not they should get the Pro or the ISO, I think they should definitely get the Pro, and they should buy it from Tony so he can get the ISO.
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I think if the release was only the ISO, and that we didn't have those other models, we would look at it and say, you get what for how much? Like it's only that we're looking at these other cheaper ones. And so I have the ISO. So a big thing to remember is if you want to record in very, very high bit rate, then you can do that with the ISO, as well as if you wanted to be streaming at the same time. So if you're streaming, obviously you can only record and stream at the exact same quality. Whereas when you have the ISO, even if you only have one input, you may want to stream at one quality and record at a high quality. And so I've found that in some simple little streaming jobs, it's been perfect for that. I just stick it right at the end of the stream, and it records one input at a high quality and streams at the lower quality.
You have to record to a hard drive or to your computer. It doesn't you don't record to SD cards or anything like that, right?
It's a USB-C to a hard drive.
USB-C. You can record to a thumb drive.
USB-C thumb drive, yep. Mm-hmm.
This is the same group that talked me into buying the higher Stream Deck instead of the middle one as well. So,
are you glad you got it?
I didn't get it yet. It's back ordered.
Okay.
So you can't get it anywhere yet.
Yep. Mike.
You're referring to me? I'm sorry. I was going to ask. So real quick though, I accidentally called me the. So that higher end ISO one, that's not the $1,000 one, right? That's not the Pro. It's a next level one, correct?
How much? What's the price on
$1,000?
$900.
It is
$895.
$895.
And it allows you to do ISO recordings.
Yep.
To a separate hard drive. That's it.
Yep.
No other equipment. Wow.
Yeah. John, and then Roscoe.
So I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel, and I'm thinking that the Mini, while a great little thing, and I'm not looking at the streaming capacity, having the ISO recordings would make my life a whole lot easier. And so, in the immortal words of Andy Anako, I've got $300. I'm gonna get another $300.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Go ahead, Bill, and then Michael.
I'm going to stand up for the base model.
Oh, sorry, Roscoe.
Mini.
The whole thing rearranged on me. Someone dropped out, and I lost track of who's. Go ahead, Roscoe, real quick.
The XMLs are not exclusive to DaVinci Resolve. They are XMLs, extensive markup language. Other nonlinear editors can read them or have them translated for them.
That's great. That's good. That's a very good point, Bill.
I was going to say, I'm going to stand up for the basic Atem. I think price to performance for under $300, you can't get a device to stick on your desk, particularly if you're just doing Zoom meetings or something like that, that will expand your capabilities more for that kind of money than the base level. So don't think that if you can't stretch to close to $1,000, that it wouldn't be transformative for your video practice, particularly on Zoom in this era, if you can just get a hold of the base Mini and add that to your arsenal.
Yeah, I do have a base Mini that actually it's our church's, and I'm using it here because it's kind of extra. But the multi-view is something I definitely want as a step up from this. So that's why I was trying to purchase that.
Michael?
Currently, right now on eBay, there is a Pro ISO for $775. So there are deals out there.
Yeah,
and I saw an XML go by 2 days ago at $845.
Right. Yep. Courtney?
Yeah, I bought the regular first, and then I quickly realized that I needed a multi-view. And besides just the multi-view, the other thing that the Pro has, and the Pro ISO that the regular one doesn't, is it has a separate switch, like an aux switch out, which is those 6 buttons on the right. So you can full screen any one of your inputs. At the same time, you're sending your program output is completely different, so you can preview stuff and I use it extensively on the second screen, so I can search for stuff and put it up in the second stream, and when I'm ready to switch, I can see it. And I can make it big enough without the multi-view so that I can see what I'm searching for and see what the results are. So without that separate switcher, so I could ISO, those individual, ISO's a bad term since it confuses me, but, switch an aux, it's like an aux out, full screen aux out, plus multi-view. So that's very, very powerful. I just wish it had another HDMI for that output,
The good news is that if you have enough of them, I found you can feed one Atem Mini into another one, and then that forms another ME. So you could build up to a 4 ME switcher with enough Atem Minis, which I'll show you soon.
Show a feed. Show a picture.
I'll show it to you. when I got to print I'm printing a new case for it. So anyway, we're working on that. All right, next question.
Chan Landy of Las Vegas back with, I'm looking for a reasonably priced monitor situation that will allow me to see what's on my monitor and be able to look directly into the camera as if I was using a teleprompter. Any suggestions?
Teleprompter. Sorry, that's the easiest way to do it. What I'm doing right now, which isn't perfect, is that my 6K is right over the top of my computer, and it's sitting right above it. And then I tend to move people that I'm talking to right under the lens, so that when I'm talking, I'm very close to looking at the lens. And that's how I've kind of made it work when I don't have a teleprompter. But I've already decided that I need a teleprompter. I'm going to buy another one soon. Go ahead, Grant and Tony.
Yeah, in the early days of office hours, like 10 years ago, I did an iPad. I bought a glass iPad cover. What are they called? Protector. And so it was like $5, and I used that as the reflection. Like, so I could sit that, and then I had another monitor that I sat at below. And so for $5, you could set it up. I put a cloth over the top, and it worked fine. And then the slight improvement to that was putting a decimator on it, which flipped the image for me as well. And so then I read text and all of that. So that's a super cheap way of doing it. And if you can just get it lined up nicely, it works really well.
Good, Tony.
I was going to say teleprompter, but the other solution might be a 4K TV. I shared a couple of links. BJ's Wholesale has a $250 LG 43-inch 4K TV for $249. They also have an LG 43-inch television 4K for $269. And so you could use that as a solution for your teleprompter.
I am strongly considering building a large teleprompter just because it's really comfortable to have, like right in front of me, of just replacing this monitor with a big teleprompter, 27-inch or 30-inch, or maybe even take Tony's advice and do 40-some inch. Remember that teleprompters are just a piece of glass that are over top of a, like, it's really easy to make them. I've made them all over the world with just finding somewhere that had silvered glass. Go ahead, Jan, and then Tucker, and then Courtney.
I just can't believe it that nobody has made a monitor that has a camera built into it, so that when you're looking like right at the screen, the camera's right there. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, you'd have to have a black pixels, and they're just, I don't think they've decided to build in mass monitors with black pixels in the center of them. I think that's the problem. We did, I think I talked about it earlier, we did vacuum form a C920 right behind silvered glass. And so it was very compacted, easy to use with it kind of vacuum formed. It works really well. Go ahead, Tucker, and then Courtney.
With your massive teleprompter idea, when does a teleprompter just become a heads-up display?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's we built one that the people were actually, the one that we built and carried into the White House, the people were actually bigger than the person talking to them. Like, the heads were massive, on the screen. And we had decided that we went too far for so many reasons. Like, when the president goes in and goes, "Oh, looks like we got a art project here." You've done too much. Anyway, Courtney.
Yeah, and it is kind of a self-defeating thing once you go bigger than about 20 inches, 15 to 20 inches, because then your eye contact, the thing you're trying to achieve, which is eye contact into the camera, gets further and further away from the camera. Your eyes are looking over here and then looking over there. So stay with the smaller monitors. And the other thing is, I'm trying to figure out how you got the decimator into an iPad, Grant. I guess you're using it as a HDMI input on it?
No. Sorry. So what I used was an iPad glass protector. That's what I used as my glass, and then I had a standard monitor.
So you weren't using the iPad for the teleprompter?
I wasn't using an iPad. I was just using it for the glass, and so that glass protector was what I was using as to reflect, and then it was like a 15-inch monitor. Yeah, it was sitting underneath it.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I don't have time to look it up, but
you're way off mic, Paul.
I couldn't look it up, but
It's such a good mic. You just got to keep it in front of you. That's all you got to do.
I know.
All right.
They make a transparent monitor that you can see through. You can see through the
monitor. It's called a teleprompter.
Yeah. I mean, they're big TVs that are see-through TVs. I've seen these. I think they had rolled some out at CES or something.
Philips. I believe it was Philips.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, can you give me co-host?
Oh, do I have it? Yeah, absolutely.
I've got it.
Or no, it's Grant. Sorry.
Yeah. Grant's host.
I'm not sure that would work though, right? As in, you'd see the pixels. Yeah.
This is the one. This is the one that we loaded into the White House. That's in the shop as we were working on it. So that was the biggest one. And carrying this glass, obviously it wasn't cleaned yet, but carrying this glass in was when we realized that there's a huge safety problem there. Trying to carry that by yourself, it's not a good idea, even with somebody else. Anyway, that was the bigger one that we built, but it's just a piece of silver glass. All right, next question.
Moving on to Mike Burns of Spokane. Andy Carluccio Zoom OSC has a very nice sounding headphone headset combo. Any idea what he's using? Anybody recognize that?
I don't know, but yeah, go ahead, John. And then Benjamin.
I was going to say, he added it to the chat. I use 2 audio chains for most teleconferencing or long days of meeting. I will use my wireless Corsair Virtuoso headset, the white one I sometimes wear. Last week I started using a Countryman H6 into an Motu M2 with Shure IE40 Pro for my IEM.
So it was definitely the white one. I thought it was pretty impressive.
That was the Virtuoso headset, Corsair Virtuoso headset.
Go ahead, Benjamin. Okay, next question.
Laura Thompson in Beaumont, Texas asks, is there a way to separate the system sound without using extra hardware so that JAWS output does not go out to Zoom? Note she's also having an issue when I unmute using the keyboard as it makes a sound that broadcasts out over Zoom.
I don't know if we have an answer for that one. Laura, you
Can
might have
loop
stumped
back?
us.
Could we loop
No,
back
well, I think
address
I think she's on a PC. I think Laura's been on, so she's on a PC. So it's really a matter of defining the PC routing to separate out sounds, which may be in the. I thought it was in preferences there that makes it possible, but I don't. Yeah, go ahead, Michael Rogers.
Yeah, just go into your audio settings on the computer, go to the audio mixer and turn down system sounds or mute them.
Give that a shot. Next question.
Moving on to Matt Cooley of Montreal, Quebec. I just got a GoPro 9 and have realized that I need a media mod at $100 in order to get an HDMI output from the camera. I'd love to use it as a drum cam. Is media mod worth it?
Go ahead, Tucker.
I do realize that you already have the GoPro 9, but I don't know about the specifics of that. I would recommend something like, if you ever go for another camera, the little Marshall CV series cameras are unbelievably good for this, and I think perform quite a bit better than the GoPros because you get much better lens options.
Yeah, I don't think a GoPro 9 was what I'd pick for a drum camera. Like, just from a price performance perspective, I think it's built for something that is more in some areas than you need, and obviously less in other areas. Go ahead, Bill.
It was like back in GoPro 3 or 4 that they took out, because they used to have HDMI out directly from the GoPros, and they removed it for a while, and then they came by with, you've got to add this $100 media mod. That was a little iffy in my estimation. If they already had the circuits designed in, why'd they take them out?
Because it's space.
Oh,
Like they put other things in there that, they just decide not many people were using it. People like me, here's my little 3, needed it for, the reason I have so many of these is because we used them for 360s. We had 6 at a time. So we needed the HDMI out, but I think not a lot of people did. I think that was the problem. Almost nobody needed it. That was the problem. Next question.
Mike Burns of Spokane is back with the camera used after the Super Bowl last night on the field was amazing. It looked like an Apple portrait mode for video. Anybody else notice that and know maybe what it was?
Yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, so Fox was the first to do this. I think Fox used the Sony A7S.
We don't think that they were using that for the Super Bowl. We had a discussion about it this morning. We think that they were using the A7S for the last set of the whole Pro, all the Pro. I mean, all the a lot of the games in the last 8 weeks have been using the A7S. But we think that they were using the 1A or the A1 or whatever as the little one, and the Venice is the big one.
The Venice, yeah, I found an article I was going to say that says that they were using the Venice. I mean, at the end of the day, they were just using a very shallow depth of field, which is the effect that was described in the question. That's essentially it.
We had a pretty lengthy discussion about this both before the morning show and then during the morning show, of the fact that the challenge with if you watch that video again, the challenge with that large aperture and the large sensor, or the wide open aperture on a large sensor, which is what they did, was that you need a really, really good follow focus operator, and they did not have that. So if you actually watch it, it looks really cool when they hit it right on, but they missed a lot. In the defense of what they were doing, usually when you see it in film, that's been rehearsed like 100 times. They figured it all out. They have little marks on the follow focus. They know exactly where I'm going to go here and then here and then here. But the other side of it is they have a follow focus operator that can just feel the lens. Like, they can just look at it and know which way you're going and feel what they should do. And that is not what was going on there. And I think my guess is that they used other camera operators who picked it up, said I can do it, and because there was a lot of a hunting that, as a person who's watched a lot of follow focus, that the person's going the wrong way. Like literally they're going out instead of in and in instead of out. And that is a really typical, like, I haven't done this before or haven't done enough of it to be comfortable. Go ahead, Bill, and then Courtney.
Yeah, I've had some circumstances using a large diameter aperture. And when somebody said, well, what do you want in focus? The tip of their nose or their eye?
Yeah.
That's your choice.
No, it was definitely in that. It was definitely that wide open. Yeah, absolutely. Courtney.
And because remember, these are wireless cameras, the follow focus guy is receiving a wireless signal and his signal is going wirelessly back. And latency, even though it's slight, can really throw follow focus off if you're seeing the focus change, a half a second after you've made that change. You cannot do follow focus very well.
Those are
latency. Yeah.
Those transmitters, I mean, I saw the ones that they were using as one frame, a little less than one frame actually. So it's pretty tight as far as what they're seeing and what they're interacting with. There's not too much lag there, but I think the errors that were being made though, I think they just look like, I mean, it has got fingerprints on it of, I don't have a lot of experience doing this all over it. Go ahead, Mike. And then Chris. Chris.
I don't have a lot of experience with fizz units like that, but does the follow focus person need to be with the camera operator, or can he be in Video Village following along? Do you know?
It's just a range issue, like of the transmitter. So it doesn't need to be in there, but it's just them seeing, they're just seeing a video.
But what about
usually it's easier for them to see it if they can see the camera operator. It's a lot easier. Like if they're behind the camera operator, it's a lot easier for them to gauge what the camera operator.
I'm sure
doing.
the NFL had issues with like how many people are running around on the field, regardless of what they said they needed to be doing too.
Yeah, I mean, so if they were in the truck, it would have been very hard to keep track of and that might have been the case. It would have been very hard to figure it out. Usually they're looking at the camera operator's motion and trying to anticipate what they're going to do next. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Because oftentimes where your focus is going based on something that's off frame. So you have to be at the camera. You have to know what's about to come onto your frame because that may affect your focus.
Next question.
James Babbitt, San Diego, says, please explain how the office hours Zoom meeting will work in Clubhouse. Well, we talked about that a good little bit before.
Yeah, it might have been run a little earlier. We're going to just do Clubhouse the way Clubhouse is designed for the first one, and then we'll see if we want to do that again. Next question.
Tim Holm, of San Lorenzo, says, we have an older projector at our church that's 1080i. When we project a white box with dark text, we see the image for just a split second, then the entire box just shows white. It's like the white snaps in and takes over. Any idea what's happening?
Go ahead, Tucker.
Not 100% certain, but what model of projector is that? If you'll post that in chat and reach out in Discord, I'd be happy to talk through some things that it could possibly be. But I would probably argue that the projector is not 1080i. It's some progressive format that's probably below that, probably 720p. And finding the best input resolution is probably key.
Next question.
Courtney Gooden of the panel here in Hollywood. Does Zoom no longer paint your digital hand blue when it's raised? It's hard to see now if it is still raised or not.
Oh, TJ.
So they changed it to allow you to have different skin tone variations for the hand. And so depending on your background, you may not see that if you change it to a tone that matches.
I just wish I could just choose blue. Like they gave me all these choices and the one I want is blue. Anyway, next question.
Jan Landy in Las Vegas says, I've been applying to get a LinkedIn live streaming account for months with not one response from them. Does anybody have any ideas on how to get a live stream account on LinkedIn?
Go ahead, Grant.
Not directly, but going through Vimeo, you can do it. So you can restream from Vimeo. It'll go straight to LinkedIn.
But I think you still have to have the live account. I think you don't have to have the live account to stream to LinkedIn Live through Vimeo. Like you don't have to have it okayed for live.
Nothing. No, it just works. You connect I just connected a vanilla LinkedIn account, and it asked me if I wanted to do a page or my personal profile, and it just restreamed.
Interesting. There you go. So Vimeo.
It
Well
is
done.
interesting. Now, do you think it would? Does Vimeo work with Restream or StreamYard? StreamYard, is that what it is?
Well, technically, you could. If for some reason you need to use them, you could stream from them to Vimeo and then to LinkedIn if you had to. Yeah,
it's like catching trains.
Yeah.
In regards to that, Alex, how are we streaming to YouTube right now? What software are we using to stream?
It's just built in. It's just built into Zoom, so you can. Zoom will let you stream to YouTube, Facebook, or an RTMP stream. So I just pointed at my account in YouTube. It's super easy to do that. There's no way to. If I wanted to go to LinkedIn, I would need to RTMP to live stream, or to Vimeo or whatever, and then to LinkedIn evidently. Or I could do it directly. I think. No, you still need that because you need something. So StreamYard, for instance, can stream directly to LinkedIn as well. I don't know if it needs the account or not. So StreamYard has the ability to stream to LinkedIn, but I don't know if you need the LinkedIn live account for StreamYard. I bet you if it's working with Vimeo, it would probably work with StreamYard. You may be able to just stream using StreamYard to straight into your LinkedIn account. Go ahead, Courtney.
Is the recording that you're doing being done in Zoom or is it being done in YouTube?
Well, the recording. Oh, this recording is Zoom. Yeah, I'm going for a record. I'm almost to a terabyte. So we're getting
By the
close,
way,
like probably this month.
In Restream, I can go to LinkedIn, but I need the live streaming account to do it. And
But try it with Stream Deck because it may work as Stream Deck with StreamYard. Try it with Stream streaming from Stream Deck. It
Push
might
all the
work.
buttons, see what-
All right, yeah. All right, next question.
Mike Burns of Spokane is in with breaking in my Atem Mini tonight. I usually use a Camlink 4K going to my Lumix G7. How does it look? Do I need fancy Thunderbolt 3 video cables? I'm using a standard data cable.
Looks fine.
Yeah.
Looks like it's working well. Yeah. Yeah, totally works.
Alex, so what about this like mystery mustache I have? Because I got accused but someone said I put a filter on there, and I do have a bit of a mustache, but I noticed it flickers a little bit back and forth, and I know that's kind of like a strobing thing that cameras usually do when you have pinstripes, that sort of deal. No, it's okay.
No. It's all good.
The mustache is pretty distinct looking though as part of your picture. So,
next question.
Andy Dolph of Durham, New Hampshire says, I'm using an Atem Mini base model fed via mini display port to an HDMI from an iMac. The picture is excessively contrasty via USB or HDMI monitoring. Any idea why or how to fix?
You may want to change the camera settings. Check your camera settings inside of your Atem Mini. Some of the camera settings that you have there are affecting the camera, and some are proc amp adjustments that it's actually doing to the image. So I believe that possibly some of the contrast settings inside there are actually processing the video that comes in. So it looks like you're shading the camera, but some of those I believe are actually, here I can test that actually. Hold on, let me, because I am coming to you from an Atem Mini. And so I can't because I have control of the camera. That's not going to work. Go ahead,
Only
Grant.
one Atem Mini? Is that what you...
Here, I only have one Atem Mini. Oh, wait. This one was only one of them here. And it's right in front of a Constellation. Anyway, but yeah, at the office, we have a couple of them stacked up. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I can just leave this the way it is. We'll cut to this. That does look, I will say that looks more contrasty, but this is my computer input.
And we're getting a screen there. We're not getting the image. At least I didn't.
You're seeing a screen. That is the screen, right? That's just
the admin login.
Yep. That's all I'm trying to show you.
Sorry.
So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the camera controls, and I'm going to attempt to, let's see here. What happens if I do? No, that doesn't have any control. And I could be completely wrong here because I don't see any.
I have never been able to affect non-Blackmagic cameras with that.
You say there's no
any of those controls.
We saw it affect. There was one point where we did see it. There was a time back where it looked like it was applying that proc amp to just the image coming in, like it was a kind of a cheat for some of the contrast and saturation controls, but it doesn't appear to be that now. So they either they probably fixed something, but there was a time when it would override whatever image was coming through, but it was just the saturation and contrast and stuff like that. That's why I was curious about that. Go ahead, Tucker, and then Grant.
It's been a while since I've done it, but I know whenever I first got into, plugging Macs into projectors or into production systems, I always had to go through and create a color profile for the like a monitor profile for them, because the things like that, the contrast was way off, the black level was way off, and things like so.
That actually,
where you have to go.
That actually could very well be an issue there. That you could that having it, because if you go into system preferences and you go into your displays, and you may want to go into the HDMI out, go to color, and there's a lot of options, and you can open that profile up. The unfortunate thing is that, and I don't really know exactly how to fix these profiles anymore, because they're all it used to be that you could actually do something to the profile, and I'm not sure whether these are ICCs that you can load or not, but you used to have a lot more control over the profiles than you have now. So
they're loadable ICC profiles.
Okay, there you go. So you might have to figure that out. Next question.
Brett Dykus of Kansas City, Missouri, frequent questioner here. Alex, have you fed TikTok from AWS Media Live yet? And if so, was the encode 1080 by 1920?
So no, there's very few people that have an RTMP input to TikTok that I know of. So it's you if you have over 1,000 subscribers, I only get to access to someone's TikTok when they have over 1,000, and I don't. So everyone should subscribe to the McDubbies, which is my kids' thing. They're at 400 something or other. If they get over 1,000, we'll start streaming from it. So anyway, and you'll find that my kids have dark humor.
Your kids will have to come on Office Hours every day. Then that's how that'll work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they'll. So that's actually what I was talking about before the show, is that I'm almost done building with this. This is a macro head, which allows me to fine tune being able to shoot a monitor with the phone. And this is for things like Instagram and TikTok, where they don't have an RTMP input and they want you to use the phone. And so I'm just kind of doing what we've done before with Periscope and other ones, and Facebook. Before, when Facebook used to give you an advantage to how many people it would share it with if you used a cell phone. So we would use this to bypass their processes. Anyway, so I haven't done RTMP because I don't have over 1,000, and I haven't had anyone ask me to stream for a while on TikTok. So, but to my knowledge, you have to be a pretty big influencer or a brand to get RTMP access right now. Next question.
Comes to us from Dan Maliska in Nelson, British Columbia. Are there Final Cut Pro 10 plugins for audio? I need to remove pops and clicks from a recording with a loose mic connector and multipath RF noise randomly all over the place.
Ooh, that's going to hurt. Bill?
Well, the audio engine in Final Cut 10 is a subset of Logic, so any plugin that works with Logic should work inside Final Cut Pro 10 natively, and Logic has beaucoup plugins for all sorts of things. You shouldn't have much trouble finding those. Just look for Logic plugins.
And for what you're talking about, Isotope. Isotope is probably your friend. RX8 is probably what you're going to want to look at, or Unveil from Zenaptic. Or those are the two that I would, but Isotope is probably where I would start if you can. Next question.
Philip Tesoro in Brisbane, Australia. How am I, now I'm really curious, Alex, what's the latency like with the 4-time Atem Minis as a 4ME setup? Do you know yet?
I haven't measured it yet, but I'll let you know soon. It's working, like they all go through it. And I'm mostly, I'm actually playing with being able to see everything outside of that. So I just got a mono price, like a 4x that you can put 4 of the computers into and then put it up on a screen. And so it's slowly working through it. Go ahead, Chris.
Are you cascading 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, or do you have 3 of them?
I'm having 2, 3, and 4 go into 1.
2, 3. Well, why not a 5th?
Because I use my telestrator for one of the inputs on one.
You have it all thought out. Thank you.
Yeah. I did think about 5. I just chose not to. It would make a bunch of other things more complicated. So it was easier to keep the telestrator on.
So
on
it was the
first
fifth
ME.
one that made it complicated, not the first
Yep.
4. Got it.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
I
Oh
just
yeah.
wanted to
Oh
double
yeah.
check.
Yeah. Tucker.
I am very excited to see the lip sync. Like obviously that's what we're talking about right now is the but like if it's going to be beneficial to put the camera down on one as opposed to the telestrator.
Yeah, I can always correct the lip sync. So I just got to measure it and then connect it because all the cameras are on one switcher. So all the cameras are on one of the MEs, so to speak. And then all the computers are another. And then there's a wild card and then the main one. So anyway, we'll show more of it soon. Next question.
Comes to us from the person who's in the middle of the panel on my display, Laura Seal of Greensboro, North Carolina. I believe North Carolina. Anyway, is anyone using an HDMI matrix router they'd recommend?
What are you trying to do, Laura?
Well, I'm recabling my room, and I've got so many HDMI devices and some, computers, Atem Minis, recorders. Sometimes I'm feeding the meeting, and sometimes I want the meeting to feed the recorders. And rather than think through every iteration of that, I would love to be able to do a 1-to-1, 1-to-2, 1-to-all, just a matrix. I'm surprised that doesn't come up more often in these workflows.
You go ahead, Tucker.
So it's really funny because Companion has made me look at things very differently when I go to make a purchase like this. I go to Companion and I go to the matrices and I see what is compatible with Companion right off the bat. And then going prior to my time doing that as my test, I looked at what the industry was using for big video matrix systems for like Deadaton watch out and things like that. And Lightware has been one of the kings in that zone for a very long time. So Lightware is what I would recommend.
Yeah. Great. Next question.
Comes from our friend Benjamin Antiput, who's here in the panel from San Carlos, California. Not the fake one that Mike Burns had up before, or it was under Mike Burns. Does anyone have a favorite low price 4-input HDMI multi-viewer, 1080p inputs, and ideally 4K output for less than $100 preferred?
I just bought the monoprice one. It's like $221. So it's not less than $100, but at it's $221 or something like that. And it's I admit you can get it faster if you pay a little bit more on Amazon. So I might have paid more because I was trying to get it done quickly. So but yeah, the monoprice one seems to work. It beeps every time you change it. So using it during a show, I'm gonna and I've gone through the manual and I've already sent them support. Every button that you hit, whether it's the remote or the button goes beep. And I get that they wanted to do that, but I'm probably going to have to open it up and take the speaker out. So, there's going to be some surgery there. But right now, I don't know if I'll do that like during a show because I'm kind of like, I'm only using it as a way to set things up. But to your point, it's all 1080p input up to 60p and it's a UHD out. So it's, and it works great. Like it has worked really well other than the beeping. I'm quite happy with it. And the only other problem, to get back to what Tucker was talking about, is that my one complaint, and the one that I have, by the way, it may be actually closer to 100 if you're only looking for a multi-viewer. The one I have is KBM. So I have KBM and multi-viewer, so I think it actually is the one that it's like $120, $130 for the one that is only a multi-viewer for 4UP. The one I have will change the USB's connections, which I really wanted, because then I have all those computers and I just change and keep on using the keyboard that I want to use. So, but my complaint is that I won't be able to, there's no way to control it remotely. So you have to hit the button. Now, I do have thoughts that I can disassemble it and then wire the closures and then tie them back into Arduino. So I can, because the buttons are physical and relatively cheap, I'm pretty sure that some surgery and a soldering iron will fix the challenge that I have with that. So there are ones that you can buy. I think I'm trying to think of who makes them, but there are ones that you can buy that have RS-232, controllers on it, and that will let you change the KVM and the inputs and outputs. But they're a little bit more expensive. But they have just the raw. What do they call those? Those blocks that come out the back.
The channel blocks.
Channel blocks. So they got channel blocks on them. So you can. I'm getting too old to remember all these things off the top of my head. All right, Tim, and then Courtney.
Does the multi-viewer have is it a HDMI loop through? Is that how that works?
No.
Where you, okay.
It's just straight. It's just, so the way I'm using them is I've got the HDMI going out of my Mac Minis, and a whole bunch of them are going into the Atem switcher. And then I'm using a USB-C to HDMI to go out to the multi-view. That way I can,
so your 4 Atem
see what I'm
going
working
to the 4 multi-view?
No, that'd be interesting actually. But the 4 computers, I need them to mirror so that I can see them without going through the Atem. So they're all mirroring. I'm just mirroring the output.
Okay.
One mirror is going into the switchers, and the other mirror is going into the multi-view so that I can see what I'm doing. So, and it's really easy. You can tap them so that you can which one you're controlling, and then you can switch it back and forth between the mode of 4 up and 1 up, and it's relatively seamless as it pops between them. So for $230 or whatever, it's a great deal. But it has some limitations. Go ahead, Tucker.
For somebody that's considering this similar workflow, what I would recommend is an independent multi-viewer that's only doing the multi-view function, and then run Synergy on all 4 machines. Synergy is kind of an IP-based keyboard mouse control, and you basically, one runs as a server, the other 3 join it as a client. It's very secure, works really, really well, and you just, wherever you move your mouse, it moves off of one display onto the next, and your keyboard and mouse control follows. It is a fantastic tool for this, very lightweight and very highly compatible with everything.
And the reason that I don't use it is because early on I used Synergy for a lot of things, and it's sticky. It was sticky, and it may have gotten much better, but years ago it was very sticky.
I had that same issue, yeah.
And so I was like, I can't use this in production. I can't use it while I'm actually trying to get to something quickly, because it worked great, but it was always kind of like you had to kind of coax it along, and so that's why I haven't used it. But I'll take on your recommendation. I'll take a look at it again. Go ahead, Courtney.
Also, I can't remember. I've got one of these. It's been a while since I pulled out of the case. The Demon, the Decimator Demon 4, and I can't remember whether it's 4 HDMI in and SDI outs, but it's a combination of conversion there from HDMI to SDI.
I think that I looked at the Decimators.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they don't do HDMI ins. I mean, they have one, but I don't think they do more than one input. If they do, it'd be really.
I don't know. Let's see.
I believe they're only SDI.
Yeah, I think they're only SDI. Yeah. Next question.
Andy Dolph of Durham, New Hampshire says, Alex mentioned making teleprompters from, quote, silvered glass. Any suggestions on where to find that? I Googled and got tons of links on how it's made. Not so helpful.
Tucker?
Literally any glass company that cuts glass. You just go in there and tell them you need 30% or whatever the percentage is, and you're set. They will.
It's used in office buildings.
Yep.
It's used, so it's a really, and it's like nothing to buy it. I think that I built a 55-inch one for the office one time, and it was like, I don't know, $50, for the piece of glass cut, and I think we sent it. So it was a couple blocks away in San Francisco. So it's pretty easy to get. So anyway, that's it. This is the end of we went a little long, but we answered. That was the shortest question with the longest answer. I think the ratio of words in the question to the length of the answer. But I figure it's the last one. We can riff a little bit. So anyway, thank you all for coming. Thanks to the panel who came in late, or not late for some of you. I guess middle of the day, early day. Go ahead, Benjamin.
Any interest in a post show, or is it too late?
We can do. I don't have a post show set up, so I don't have one for this. If you want to throw one into Makana, you're more than welcome to do a post show. Benjamin can run.
Try one for a little while.
Yeah, we'll try one for a little while, and I'll work on getting a post show for this one as well that we can do. But for now, we'll let Benjamin throw that into Makana and see if anybody wants to partake. So anyway, we'll keep on doing this. Tell your friends that we're available on Monday night, and remember that on Wednesday, if you're able to get into Clubhouse, we'll give this Clubhouse thing a try, but we will work on a way to broadcast it back out, or not broadcast it back out, or do it in Zoom. I don't know, I'll figure it out. It's only 1 hour a week. Don't worry too much. It'll just be it'll be an experiment.
Hey, Jan, did you send me that?
We'll see you all.
I sent out the only 3 that I had. So if I know Trucker got one, Benjamin got one, and then one other person I got the invite to. So, I mean, basically what somebody who has to do is put you in their phone book, and then it's easy. The second they put you in the phone book, you can invite them.
Yeah.
It's
So,
very amazing.
If whoever, I don't know if someone has sent it to me, but if you send it to me in Discord, the first 4, I've got 4 invites I can send down.